Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Daily Compliance News. The Daily Compliance News is an offering of the Compliance Podcast Network. August 4, 2019, the Sunday Book Review edition. First up, After the Fall by Tobias Buck. After the Fall presents a rich and vivid portrait of contemporary Spain at a critical moment in the country's history. The book tells the story of Spain's long boom and sudden bust and the brutal economic crisis that followed, the political and social aftershocks which reverberate to this day. It explores the origins of the separatist movement in Catalonia and the bitter clash with the Spanish government that culminated in the failed secession referendum and a divisive declaration of independence. It looks at the legacy of the Civil War and the Franco dictatorship nearly 50 years after it ended, and the continued struggle over historical memory in Spain today. Next up, the book Range, How Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World. David Epstein, the author, explains how the world's most successful athletes, artists, musicians, forecasters, inventors, and scientists, or he examined them, and he discovered in most fields, especially those that are complex and unpredictable, generalists, not specialists, are primed to excel. Journalists often find their path late, and they juggle many interests instead of focusing on one. They're also more creative, more agile, and able to make more connections than the specialized peers can see. Provocative, rigorous, and engrossing, Range makes a compelling case for actively cultivating inefficiency and that failing is the best way to learn going forward. Next up is a biography of someone who I was not aware of, and that's Bagehot, who in the subtitle is The Life and Times of the Greatest Victorian. So I have to admit, I did not know this gentleman, but he was a banker and helped inspire some of the world's responses to its most significant financial crises. He was a friend of William Gladstone, Lord Overstone, and Disraeli. He wrote on a wide variety of subjects. He was the editor of The Economist and has been called the greatest Victorian. So if you like a biography of somebody you didn't know something about, well, check this one out because I certainly think it is going to be interesting. And then finally, as you well know, I am a lover of all things rock and roll. And so this last book is Fried and Justified, the story of the indie rock and roll business by one of the best-loved characters in the music business. In 1980, Mick Houghton set up his own PR company, and for the next 20 years, he worked with some of the greatest who's who of rock and roll groups. In this book, he looks at not only how the money was made, but how money was not made, and that it's his belief that the music comes first. So it's a really interesting look at the business side of the creative process. It's something that I know you will enjoy. So we have time for one more on this very special Sunday book review, and that's Natural Rivals by John Clayton. In this, he looks at Gifford Pinchot and John Muir to understand each man's relationship to nature. Unfortunately, it was in a very different way, both practical and spiritual, but both left a shared legacy on our vast public lands. So if you're interested in the American West, the start of the environmental movement, which of course led to supply chain compliance, which I've explained in another podcast. I know you'll enjoy this book. Check it out. I released 2 new podcasts last week, over the last 2 weeks, Creativity and Compliance with Ronnie Feldman and Accountability, the Heart of Compliance with Sam Silverstein. I hope you will check out both of these podcasts to bring really a new dimension to the compliance discussion. As always with the Compliance Podcast Network, we're expanding. We've got a new podcast out in the next week or so, so I hope you will continue to check us out and move forward with us. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio.